Hey, what's up, guys? This is Andrew Smersek with Combat Art Training. I'm here today with Zach Bush of Definitive Training Solutions. We are going to be talking about active shooters. It is a common problem in America. It's a big, scary thing to a lot of people, especially if you have kids in a school or if you attend a church. Many other places where active shooters happen. I have personally trained with Zach Bush. He came down to Florida, and I did a shotgun class and a kind of like go around on the ground grappling with guns class.
Entangled gunfighting.
Entangled gunfighting. Yeah, and they were great. Damn, and I feel really bad because like you, Gary, like lots of people, I should have shot video reviews immediately after for the class. I was thinking one day I might just go through all the classes I've taken and just doing like a one by one, bum. Here's some cool things about these classes.
Right.
But without further ado, oh wait, I will mention one more thing. He will be at the Combat Art Summit. You guys need to be there. He's going to give his active shooter lecture there. You can sign up at combatarttraining.com. You can also scan this QR code. Zach Bush has a discount code that will get you $100 off if you have trained with him before. So make sure you post that in your alumni group because I put a link to this video in the alumni group on Facebook already. Now, Zach, go ahead, take it away. Let them know your stuff, what you do, and all that.
Yeah. So my name is Zach Bush. I'm the owner of Definitive Training Solutions. We are I guess it's expanded a little bit, a combatives company, a firearms training company. We also do active shooter classes and consulting. And so the idea behind Definitive Training Solutions is we offer training. However, we like to pressure test it the best that we can. So for the classes that Andrew is in, not the shotgun class, but the entangled gunfighting class, we incorporate force on force into almost all of our classes, except the shotgun class, I think. And not only just in the classes, but just the ideas that we promote. We like to make sure that we can, I guess, explain the why behind them. And so when we talk about this active shooter stuff, we're going to talk a lot about why, we're going to talk about how. And so that's another way that we pressure test some of our curriculum. Aside from that, we are based out of Indiana. We travel all over. We've been to Florida. We go to Pennsylvania a bunch. We go to Ohio, Kentucky. So definitely in the Midwest. We're going to Las Vegas in this coming October to teach. And so, we travel just about everywhere. We don't really have a home range, and we kind of prefer it that way. Trying to think a little about me. I've been in law enforcement for almost 20 years. The past 7 to 8 years, I've worked in a school resource officer capacity. And that's been my full-time job as far as what I do outside of the training. Into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, got a son, all that good stuff, and Marine Corps veteran, just like your fearless leader over here.
Kill.
I know, right? So it's a little about me. My training background, probably like a lot of people that are watching this. I took a couple classes, pistol classes, and then was like, oh, I don't know anything about medical. And then I just kind of branched out. That was probably, 15 years ago. It was after I became a cop. And so I was able to kind of seek out that training outside of my department. And I just kept snowballing it into different topics and things that I was passionate about. It's what got me into jiu-jitsu. And then obviously my job has led me into the active shooter world as far as studying and kind of understanding a little bit more about that. So yeah, a little bit about me, I guess. Happy to be here.
Sounds good. And I mentioned that he's going to give an active shooter lecture at the summit. I also plan on putting Zach, Tim Morris, and Jerry Gouch together, and I'm just going to call it the greatest shotgun class ever. It's three super nerds. I might, give a little thing in there too, because I actually am one of the few people that see the value in shotguns.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely
not enough to invest the $2,000 in the shotgun I want yet. But I got child support. It makes it hard to buy cool shotguns,
There you go. Yeah, no. Or you can just buy a bunch of really okay shotguns.
That's what I've been doing.
Because if you
Hey,
take shotgun classes or if you teach shotgun classes, they'll break.
yeah.
And so it's good to have loaners, but whenever you can spring for that 1301, you will not
Yeah.
be sad.
Yeah, I want that mod too. I want that that poor hater shotgun. That's the one I need. So talking about active shooters, there's been many active shooters that have happened like in like the past 30 years. I think it's gotten like progressively worse in the past 30 years, correct?
Well, I think that would depend kind of whose definition you're following, right? So, the FBI and the government, they have their own definition of an active shooter, which is a very small number of people. So, if you look on paper and you think, well, this agency says that we have a lot more active shooters or shooter situations than we did 20 years ago, you probably need to look about how they define an active shooter incident compared to how they defined it 20 years ago. So I don't know if I would say there's more, there's less. They're definitely more publicized, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are happening in places that are more highly populated. Um, and they're generally, I would say, more well planned out by the perpetrators than they were 20 years ago. And they're more publicized by the media. So I would say all those things are true. I don't know if I would say there's more, they're worse, but it's definitely a little different than it was 20 years ago.
Well, was Columbine the first big one, or was there another one before that?
Well, I guess it kind of depends. If we're talking about schools,
Yeah.
yeah, school specific. There was other incidents. None were as had as many casualties as Columbine. There was one like a long, long time before Columbine, but it was an explosive incident. But it was the same thing of trying to hurt innocent people. But if we're talking about schools, I would say Columbine was the first one to have a large number of casualties, and that happened during kind of the internet media age. So I would say, if I had to say like what was the genesis for understanding active shooters as a society, I would agree that it was Columbine.
Okay. Yeah. Because I should have phrased that better. Talking about school shootings.
Mhm.
Like when I think of active shooter, that's naturally the first thing I think of because that is like
Yeah.
the most publicized thing. But thinking about how like it was kind of like Columbine happened, and then you would see more, it would always get related back to that.
Yeah.
So, with everything you have studied, I want you to kind of just take it away and just kind of rant on it. Because I know you take it like very seriously. You've studied it a lot, and I'll just kind of ask questions as we go. Maybe interject a thing or two. I have my thoughts on active shooters. I've done a few videos on that, a couple shorts already people could reference. But yeah, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of start generally, you were correct when you said that like Columbine wasn't the first active shooter incident, right? It was the first one that most people know about because of how it was portrayed. There's a lot of things people don't know about Columbine. I'm not sure if the summit if I'll do the Columbine class or not, but I'm going to teach several different active shooter incident classes. And Columbine is kind of like the shotgun, right? There's so many myths behind it, and until people really understand it, you understand like how big of a deal it was, not just for the day that it happened, but for moving forward and what kind of policy that it set that is honestly still in place. Good or bad, which we can talk about that here in a little bit. But you have to go even back further than Columbine to find incidents of people going into a public place that's highly populated and indiscriminately hurting people or shooting people. Like I would tell you if you went back further than Columbine, you would find San Ysidro, California. I think in '79, a guy goes into McDonald's, starts shooting people. A police officer shows up almost instantly and waits outside, and later says he doesn't go in because he just had a 38 revolver, and the guy inside had, I think, some kind of 9mm subgun or whatever it was. And they end
That's
up,
that's very similar to like if you listen to a lot of interviews from the North Hollywood shootout guys, it was so and this is like a good theme that we need to put in this video anyways, is that it like, okay, just because I have a better gun, that doesn't mean they're gonna win. It's
Exactly.
not D&D.
Yeah.
So like with the North Hollywood shootout, when you listen to a lot of the interviews with the cops, they had a defeatist mindset. Not all of them, okay? Not trying to trash people. I wasn't there. I don't want to be a cop ever. I don't like that idea. But like, but it was like, we just had 9mm and 38s. They had AKs. There was nothing we could do. It's like a common thing you would hear, or they had body armor. We didn't, blah, 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 and so it's like, okay, just because someone has a better tool does not make them the better fighter.
Right. Yeah. And that lesson, and we could probably find examples of that lesson all throughout gunfighting. Right. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at Columbine, we really have to look back at San Ysidro, because it was pretty much the same thing as far as body count, as far as like the police response. And at San Ysidro, they essentially wait for almost 30 minutes before the SWAT team shows up, and the sniper ends up shooting the suspect, and then it's over, right? 20 something, maybe even 30 people dead, another couple dozen shot. And then so we get to Columbine, which, like I said, is kind of for anyone within our circle, even not within our circle. If you ask them what was the first active shooter incident, most people would say Columbine, right? And I would agree. If we're talking about school shootings, Columbine probably was the first, as far as the coverage it got, but then also it's the first in the sense that it set precedent for not only as a society how we think we should respond to these things, and also it set forth a wave of copycat events, right? Because when you put these two shooters from Columbine like on Time magazine, people then think, oh, well, if I want to be famous, like this is one way to do it. And so the media really kind of pushed this forward as well, in my opinion, and that's what kind of started other events. And that's why I would say Columbine is the first active shooter event, but it's not the first active shooter event. After that, then it kind of gets staggered into a bunch of other events that, this thing happens. So we know a little bit about this. The biggest thing I could say in the past, 25, 26 years since Columbine is, unfortunately, we have a lot of data now about how these things unfold. We have a lot of data about the kind of people that generally commit these acts, why they do it, the type of gear that they typically use. And so Columbine, when you talk about the history of active shooters, it kind of starts at Columbine and it kind of goes forward, to present. And it even, the active shooter term now even covers non-school related shootings, right? So you think about things like Pulse nightclub and some of these other ones that were horrendous, I guess, large scale events. And people lump all that into the active shooter bucket, which is okay. So when we talk about active shooter stuff, I would say it starts at Columbine and it goes pretty much up until now. The only caveat I would tell you is, if you think that these are happening a lot more frequently, I don't necessarily disagree. I would just say read the FBI's definition of what they call an active shooter and then try to find what it was 20 years ago.
Because they basically will lump gang violence in with it, right?
Or if somebody, goes into their own home and kills 3 of their family members in their own home, that qualifies. Okay. And then they turn the gun on themselves. That's 4 bodies. That potentially could qualify under the definition. So, looking at the statistics as a whole, you got to be skeptical a little bit. But when we start diving into each one of these incidents or general lessons learned, like from Columbine to now and kind of what we're doing, I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah. Don't they also define that as like if a guy has an ND in a school zone, then it's a school shooting?
I'm not sure about that as far as like accidental stuff. Yeah. I can tell you that the media will make you believe that there was an active shooter incident if somebody is, in a gunfight with somebody else on school property, those are things that like you have to kind of weed through. But as time goes on, we can look back at things that are clearly active shooter incidents, but not all of them happened in a school. But the way that we respond, and I say we, like that society's view of how we should respond to these things, we can trace it right back to Columbine. And yeah, go ahead.
What were the lessons in Columbine?
No, great question. So we have to go back to San Ysidro first, right? So San Ysidro, California, which is now San Diego. After that incident was over, they said, shockingly enough, I'm sure you can guess, we can't wait for the SWAT team, right? Can't wait for the SWAT team. Let's go forward now to April of 1999. What's the lesson from Columbine that most people probably hear? We can't wait for the SWAT team. Okay, fair. I wasn't in police work in 1999, but I was, a few years later. And I can remember even being in college, and that was a big thing of like the cops can't wait for the SWAT team. They have to go in, which 100% agree with. That's what needs to happen. And so since Columbine, when I think that shift in mindset of how do we respond to these things, since Columbine, that hasn't changed. There's been no other large scale changes about what does society think about how we should respond to stop these things. I'm not talking about the before stuff. I'm not talking about the after stuff. I'm talking about the actual incident. Society's opinion of what we should do hasn't really changed, but we've had a plethora of information to influence what is really effective and what is not effective. And so I've already kind of forgot your question, but generally
lessons.
Yeah. Okay.
Columbine.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Lessons of Columbine. That was the big one, right? Cops, the responding officers have to go in. That's still present to this day. The other lessons of Columbine were maybe a little lesser known, maybe not to people within our circle. The other lessons of Columbine were like having somebody there right now has the ability to make a difference, right? So most people don't know there was an officer assigned to Columbine High School. There was actually a two-way gunfight in the Columbine shooting between the police and the suspects. That didn't really come out. But having somebody there ready to respond is not a lesson that I think was learned then, because it was overshadowed by the police just they waited too long for the SWAT team, but they're not going to do it again. And so the other lessons I think people like us would probably take from it was like there was somebody there with a gun, like ready to do work, and unfortunately he just didn't. And so
was it that it was a cop that was there?
Oh yeah, it was a police officer, school resource officer assigned to Columbine High School. He was out. He came back, heard the incident. The two suspects were on the second floor right before they entered the library, which obviously is where the majority of the killing took place. And they were shooting from the second story down to the parking lot. Traded a few rounds. The officer, unfortunately, didn't go in. And the two shooters went to the library, which brings up the other part. When you say lessons learned, maybe not as a society, but with people like us, is people who are grouped up into small confined spaces is exactly where these targeted events happen, right?
Yep.
They don't go to police stations to commit these crimes. They don't go to, a restaurant that has two people in it, right? I mean, typically. So not that we can control where we have people grouped up together because we're a society and we have to be in groups at times. But another big lesson in Columbine was you have a bunch of people in a room and the shooters make their way into that room. Like you can expect a high number of casualties. Mm-hmm. And so those are probably the biggest lessons from Columbine. Where police can't wait for the SWAT team. If there's someone there with a gun, they have to do something. And then if people are grouped up into small rooms, or not small rooms, but in confined spaces with nowhere to exit, you can absolutely expect not only high casualties, because Columbine, in the grand scheme of other active shooter incidents, Columbine wasn't nearly the highest body count that we have, right? I think it was 26 people killed. But the thing about Columbine is most of those fatalities happened in a very short 3-minute time span, or probably less than that. Prior to them entering the library, they didn't really kill that many people in the grand scheme of an active shooter incident.
Now, I know a lot of the active shooters, well, school shooters primarily, and others too. They've all been on, like lately, they've been on antidepressants.
Yeah.
It's been a common theme. So, hey, folks, like, do other stuff to get your life in order as much as possible. Like, eat healthy, work out, like, and be the example of that. Hey, I just lost a bunch of weight. I'll do a video once I lose more. But, like do everything possible to fix your life outside of medication. Everything I see about antidepressants and shit like that, it does not help people mentally. But that's been a common thing. Were the Columbine shooters on anything?
Well, so the answer is yes, they were. One of them was on a lot more antipsychotic drugs than the other. If you remember, I don't know if you do remember, they didn't blame medication during the Columbine incident, right?
No.
Do you know what they blamed as far as external forces on the 2 kids?
Marilyn Manson, Megadeth, and violent video games. Violent
video games. And I'm not saying that any of those 3, was it a factor? I don't know. Was it a considerable factor? I would have to say no. You know what I mean? There's a movie called Elephant. I don't know if you ever heard of it or watched it. It's kind of like an indie movie. And it is a recreation of the Columbine events, kind of first person. It's actually pretty good, but it's not a direct representation of what happened. However, in the movie, they hit on that all the time. They show scenes of the 2 boys playing Doom, if you remember the old Doom game, right? Yeah. And then listening to heavy metal music or whatever. But that's what was blamed, back in 1999, because after these incidents happened, people want answers like we all do. And if the answer is hard to swallow, right? Or if the answer is something that you're not familiar with, right? If you're somebody and you just don't know what the answer is, then you just kind of say what you think the answer is. And it's Marilyn Manson, or it's, violent video games. I'm not saying, violent video games, that's a whole other topic we can have, but yeah, the idea that these kids were fine until they played a video game is obviously like preposterous.
Retarded.
Like there's,
but
what is and then when you talk about common themes with active shooter suspects, there's not a large number of active shooter suspects that play violent video games. Like that's not a thing. But there is a large number of them that are on antipsychotic medications for sure. I'm not saying that's like the biggest reason they do it. I think there's other reasons. People ask all the time, like, what's the biggest reason somebody would do something like this? And I would tell you my answer is fame. They want to be famous, right? If they could, create a TikTok account and get 1 million subscribers or whatever, some of them would probably do that. Like they want to be famous.
It's the reason why
that with some of the other factors, like the medication or the way they grow up or whatever. But really, it comes down to these people want you to remember their name. They want you to put their picture on Time magazine. That's what these people want.
Yeah, it's funny that it's the reason why we're not allowed to show a gun right now on this live stream. It's because, and that was done in New Zealand. I don't remember if it was a mosque or what, but active shooter live stream.
Yeah, it was a mosque.
Yeah.
And we talk about the big why. Some people will say, it's not about being famous. It's about hurting a certain religious location, and that's definitely true. Like there are, I would say, a small number of these incidents were because somebody had a hatred towards a certain ethnicity or a certain religion. Like that definitely happens. But by and large, the majority of people that commit these acts are doing it because they want people to remember who they were. And there's not many more ways to be memorable than doing a horrific incident, and shooting 30 people. Like it's just, unfortunately, that's what they put on the news. And that's the biggest reason why. There are, again, we talk about all these statistics and facts. There's always little side things that are true in this case and that case. But in general, I would tell you that these people want to be famous.
Now, so the odds have someone who is competent there armed immediately, like be a hard target, avoid, deter, de-escalate, right? And of course we have to fight too, but that deterrence of actually having a dude who's armed there and able to handle the problem, that's like probably the biggest thing. Would you agree?
So if we're talking about deterrence, as far as deterring somebody from doing this incident before it happens, right?
Yep.
Having an armed person there, I would agree, is a deterrent. I think sometimes different organizations focus too much on the before and the after. A lot of information I have about this, a lot of my mindset about the active shooter stuff has been shaped by someone named Ed Monk of Last Resort Firearms Training in Arkansas. If you don't know who Ed Monk is, you need to look him up on Facebook. He kind of conceptualized a lot of the things that I had been feeling about what I think about active shooter response. And when I took a couple of his classes and I took his instructor class, it all clicked with me. So I just want to give a shout out to him real quick. He is the like gold standard when it comes to active shooter stuff. As much as I'm passionate about it, I wouldn't know what I know without Ed. And so I just want to make sure we put that in there, like, so I don't forget later.
Yeah, guys, like something I love about Zach is him and I are very aligned in the sense that we are way more concerned about being students than instructors. Like we take a lot of fucking training. Even Zach has jumped in on one of my classes. I've taken two of his. That's important. That's something I love about Zach. That's one of the reasons why you should fucking train with Zach. All right.
Yeah. So just, a little side note about that. You're going to remind me because I've already got sidetracked again.
All right. Talking about during the reaction to the shooting.
Yeah. So the deterrent is before, right?
Yep.
Like we talk about active shooter stuff in my class or in my classes. I'm specifically talking to the students about right now. Like when this shit is happening right now, what do you have to do? What should you do? And I use previous examples from other active shooter incidents, both in a school and just in public places, to reiterate why I teach the response that I teach, right? So if we talk about like during the incident, like best case scenario, you have to have somebody there to counter the shooter, right? In the story. Now, notice I didn't say they have to have a gun, right?
Right.
It's helpful if they do, in my opinion, but they don't have to. There's plenty of incidents out there where somebody intervened with an active shooter incident and they didn't have a gun, right? And there's plenty where they did have a gun and they intervened. But if we're talking about when it's happening, we have to look at what like society says, right? Like what should we do if somebody walks into a public place and starts shooting people? And you have to go back to when was that precedent set as far as society's standard? And that was Columbine, right? Columbine was, we're going to pick up the phone, we're going to call the police, and the police are not going to wait for the SWAT team, right? They're going to go in.
Hopefully, yeah.
Since Columbine, here's the trick though. We've used that same response since Columbine. Like as a society, as I would say most schools use that. And if you have somebody in the school that's already armed, like you said, like whether it's a school resource officer, whether it's somebody that works at the school, that's, in my opinion, that's about as good as it gets. However, one thing we've seen since Columbine and like straight up data is if you don't counter the shooter within 30 seconds, you can expect 9 people to be shot minimum, right? Now there's obviously cases, above and below that, but Ed actually has a book coming out called The First 30 Seconds, like for that reason, right? If you do not counter the shooter within the first 30 seconds, they will shoot at least 9 people. And for every 2 to 5 seconds after that, they will shoot 1 person, generally speaking, until they either stop, which happened in Columbine, right? Those 2 shooters just decided to quit. They had plenty more targets. But now the people that commit these crimes and these incidents, they're not stopping anymore. That's one shift. So the first 30 seconds are critical. I don't expect any police officer to be able to respond to a scene that he or she's not already at within 30 seconds. It's just, I feel like that's unrealistic. I'm not saying anything bad about cops at all. I just say, like, nobody in this chat thinks that a cop should be able to be at your doorstep within 30 seconds. That's unrealistic. So then the question is, if we shouldn't wait for the SWAT team, do we have time to wait for the police to show up? Like, that's the question you got to ask yourself. And if you look at the numbers, again, most of these numbers I got from Ed, and Ed will tell you these numbers. And then what I did is I went out and I started looking at other incidents that Ed didn't mention in his class to see if these numbers lined up. And they almost always line up. The first 30 seconds, 9 people are going to be shot if the person doesn't have any countermeasures. And then 1 person shot every 2 to 5 seconds after that. Typically holds true with most of these incidents. And so the question you have to ask yourself when it comes to, like, during the incident is, what do you got time to wait for, right? Like, how much time do you got? The answer is you fucking got 30 seconds or less. And so
I want to interject on that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So, like, people who think, like, oh, I keep my gun in the car.
Yeah.
All right. Just do this one time. Like, when you're at Walmart, the grocery store, sprint to your car and then sprint back in the building. Yeah, I get you look crazy, but let's see how good you are at that.
Well, yeah, and that's a great point. In my almost all my classes, I talk about a specific video where the question is raised, if there's an active shooter incident, what would you do? And this person who's very well known in the gun community or whatever says, I would take my family to the car and then I would go back into the mall and I would stop this person. Okay. But you ain't doing that within 30 seconds. And most malls, if you're sprinting, we're talking about minutes at best. And then the other factors of that plan start to really go to shit, right? Like, you're running out of a mall. Everybody's going to be running out. Okay, fine. Try running back into that mall when people are running the opposite direction, right?
Yeah.
Try not to get run over in the fucking parking lot running back into the mall. And then the biggest problem with that story, you're also assuming that the situation is the same as you left it before. Right. So that dude's in the food court right now. You think he's still going to be in the food court? I don't know. He might, but he might not be. Right. Or when you re-enter, now you're kind of entering his space. There's a lot of tactical stuff, but the idea that how much, the biggest question I always ask people, especially if they're kind of new to the whole active shooter, I guess, methodology or this kind of stuff that I teach, is I always say, how much time do you got? And they kind of look at me blank, and I'll say, you got 30 seconds. Like, you got to figure it out within 30 seconds. Like, meaning you have to have your countermeasure on that person within 30 seconds, or else you can expect double-digit casualties.
Yeah, and the other thing that it's like, I see it lacking so much that people don't understand this. Like, in the comments I get, in videos I see, instructional type, but it's like, guys, you're leaving and coming back in. You might also get shot by the cops doing that, or
like
shot
100%.
by another concealed carry guy. Like, it's such a fucking terrible situation, right? Now, I will say the right thing to do is to go in and kill the active shooter. That is the right thing to do. Okay. Of course, you got to get your family to a safe enough location. Safe enough does not mean spending 8 minutes getting into the car and back. Okay. Safe enough. Hopefully your wife is competent, because I know there's 0 women watching this. So hopefully your wife is competent. Hopefully your wife is armed. Hopefully your wife has medical, and hopefully you have rehearsed this somewhat as a family. Your kids need roles too. They need to understand what to do. But it would be really fucking stupid to go through all that getting your family safe to get shot by cops. Because you think you're a good guy. You're not a good guy. You're a guy with a gun at an active shooter situation.
Yeah, you can. So we talk about being mistaken by police. Is it possible? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
However, statistically, it doesn't happen very often. And the reason it doesn't happen very often is because people are able to stop these very quickly, right? Long before the police ever get there. Look at the Greenwood Park Mall in Indiana. I have a presentation about that. Eli Dicken, that shit was over within less than 10 seconds, right? And
But how
because
did
he
they
decided,
respond? Like, how
oh
did
yeah,
those guys respond?
the police took 3 to 4 minutes to get there.
No,
right?
I mean the guys that stopped the bad guy.
In the Greenwood Park Mall shooting.
Yeah, go ahead, go through all of them.
Oh yeah, so in the food court. Shooter comes out of the bathroom with 2 rifles. Immediately shoots and kills 3 people that are sitting there right next to the exit of the restrooms. It's a big circle-style food court. Eli Dicken gets up from about 35 to 40 yards away, starts shooting. He continues to advance as he's shooting. Within 10 seconds, the shooter has retreated back in the bathroom, was shot 7 times, and died almost where he began. That arrow between the fuck around and the find out stage of that incident was very short because Eli Dicken got his gun out and he stopped it. Now, Eli Dicken's girlfriend was with him in the food court, right? Mm-hmm. They were sitting, eating food, as people do. And had Eli got up and said, hey, let's go to the car, and he would have came back, there would have been at least 20 people killed, right? And we're just talking if that would have taken 2 minutes. So that reiterates that idea that you have to do something. I would say when you mentioned your comment about making sure your family is, or the people you're with are in a safer place, I understand the mindset behind that. I will tell you the safest place in an active shooter is when that person is no longer hurting people. That's the safest place. I've got criticized for this before in the past. Because someone will always say, well, I have a 1-year-old kid, right? And we're at the mall together. What do? You do the exact same thing you would do if you're by yourself. You go find that fucker and you kill him.
When I say like,
and I know that's hard to hear, but that's how important time is.
Yeah, when I say like safe enough, what I'm saying is it could be like, okay, like Dickens, right? There's a bad guy. Mm-hmm. That answer is obvious. Okay, at least it was for him. It was fuck, kill that guy now, right? But let's say he wasn't right there, and instead he tried to get his girlfriend all the way back to the car and come all the way back in. It wouldn't have gone that way. If it was like that, he may have been like, go in that bathroom right there, or run to the car, something like that. Safe enough location for him to then push the fight, and it's like, it's also, it gets, this is where I prefer discussing this whole subject on class, but you got to think, am I with my wife? Am I with my girlfriend? Am I with my bro? Am I with my kid? Am I with my wife and my kid? Like all these different things can change the dynamic of the situation. There's, like the people in our circle, there's a lot of thoughts that go on with it. And for that conversation to get real in depth in it, it's like, you got to come to a class to talk about it. Like putting it out on the internet, we're going to get too many retards putting their 2 cents in. And
I would agree with you.
They're going to hold the gun on the guy until the cops show up and shit like that. Yeah.
I would agree with you. The people that you're with does change the dynamic, like your dynamic of the incident. 100% agree. But one thing it doesn't change, it doesn't change the math. It doesn't change. You got to do something within 30 seconds. So, and again, I'm not, in my class, we get into this a little more, and I would never judge anyone for disagreeing or whatever. It's literally like you have 30 seconds. So like, think about like 30 seconds is not that long when it comes to how these incidents unfold. Eli Dicken, I would argue he didn't even have 30 seconds, right? He had less than 30 seconds. There's other times where you may have a little more time, but generally speaking, people, I think, get wrapped up sometimes about, oh, well, I've got my 1-year-old. What do I do with him or her? The answer is the same. The fucking clock's ticking, dude. Like, you have to go do something. So what you decide to do, like, the good news is you got the rest of your life to live with it, and if that kid's 1 year old, like, he's probably going to outlive you, and he's got you to look at and to read that news story every time he opens up a, web browser for the next 70 years of his life. Right. And so the safest place you can put your 1-year-old son or your young child or your wife or whoever, the safest place you can put them is with that person no longer hurting people. Right. Mm-hmm. What, like, people think of it as a location thing of I've got to get her to over here. I've got to get my kid into his car seat. Like, you have to stop this person. You got 30 seconds to do it or less. And the time starts now. And so, people will say, well, and that's fine. Like, but as long as we can agree that you have 30 seconds to make a difference.
Yep.
And that's one thing from before, after Columbine, not a heck of a lot has changed as far as society's idea of what we should do to keep our public areas and our schools safe, right? It's, the cops will show up. They're not going to win the SWAT team, which is good. And of course, if you have an officer on scene already, that's even better. But the question you have to ask yourself now, society, I think, and maybe individually have to ask yourself is, how much time do you got? Like, can you expect the police to be there in 30 seconds? I don't think you can reasonably expect that. Nothing against the police, of course. And so that being said, like,
there's
you
a lot
have to have a different mindset. Just like you don't have 3 minutes to take your wife to the car, kiss her goodbye, go back in. You don't have 3 minutes for that, right? I think we all can agree. And so the question is, how do we get involved within 30 seconds or less? And the answer is the question. Like, we have to get involved. Somebody has to fucking do something. There's different ways and different methods that could be more effective than others, of course. However, this idea that you have 30 seconds and somebody has to do something that's on scene, that's the shift that needs to happen when it comes to how people and how organizations view these active shooter incidents.
Yeah. And so, I've trained some people who work at schools. One of the biggest disappointments, and it's like, it'll even be people who are allowed to have a gun at the school. They aren't keeping it on their body. Yeah. And it's the same thing. And it's like, I don't, how it's like such a struggle if you have someone come to class and they don't carry their gun out at the end of it. And you're like, man, I've done everything I possibly can think of to do this, short of putting on a ski mask and scaring them at their own house or out at the grocery store, Yeah. It's like, and it's one of those, like, people need to take violence seriously and understand the realities of it, It's,
and they need to
kind of like,
understand
it'd be nice to force everyone to take 1 day of training with Sonny. That would be really great if we could do that.
And like I said, they just have to understand the violence, right? And it's not pretty. And I mean, people generally outside of our circle, of course, like, talk about teachers and business owners, people that understand it's a problem, and they really, in their hearts, they want to have a viable solution for it. The problem is, like, the viable solution for violence, it's hard for people that don't understand violence to accept it, right? To, like, truly think, okay, yeah, like, we need, like, we're going to call the police and they're going to bring guns to shoot this person. What if we just kind of cut the middleman out, right? Or at least start with that as our plan, right? And that's hard for some people to understand that aren't in that mindset of violence, right?
It wouldn't take, like, I get people have their lives to live, so I can't expect them to take as many classes as you and I do. Right. But to, like, be more competent than the shooter at your skills would not take much. It would take a little bit more. It would take
very little. It would take very little.
It would take a little bit more to be more competent than the average cop that would show up, Then it's like, you got to put a little bit more effort in. So, like Jay Gibson says, whoever you want coming to your emergency, just be that guy.
Yeah, be that person. Yeah, exactly. And so, the idea of, if you look at citizens who intervened in active shooter situations with a firearm, right? If we lined up all those and we studied each person, each good guy that intervened with a gun, I would promise you the majority of them had 0 classes. I'm not saying that you should have 0 classes, right? In the active shooter class that I teach, there is a range portion. And I think sometimes people think it's going to be this high speed, like ripping Velcro off and reloading a mag one-handed with a tourniquet on the other hand, and that's good training, of course, don't get me wrong. But my job in that live fire portion is just to remind you that you can do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if it's your first class. I don't care if it's someone like you or someone like me. Like, you can do this. It just starts up here, right? And having the right gear helps, of course. I'm not going to disparage that, but you have to make sure that You understand the time frame, and also understanding that you typically, like statistically, these people that intervene in these, if they're not police officers, they don't have a lot of training, and they're usually very successful.
It's Youre made a video series a while back on active shooters, and it's really good. Like, people should watch that.
Yeah.
Like two big messages he had in there: get in there and shoot them in the face. And I virtually copied that on one of my videos. It was definitely inspired by him. That's where I heard it first, right? The other one was the concept of you're either gonna, there's 4 outcomes, right? So live hero, dead hero, live coward, dead coward. And something I started saying that I got from that was like, no matter what happens, you have to die with your decision.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to like talking about, if you're there with your 1-year-old, still going to be knowing what happened 20 years later. Along the lines of that too, how much resistance do active shooters put up once they're confronted?
Virtually none. And when we say confronted, that's a very broad term, right? So confronted can mean that they hear police sirens, right? And they know the police are getting close. Confronted could mean they see a staff member running towards them. Confronted could mean getting shot at, could be someone pointing a gun at them. Confronted could also mean hearing something on the intercom that, shooters in room 4, right? So all of those usually speed up that process of the shooter ending their own life, right? Columbine was one of the outliers where they just got bored. Like, we talk about the psychotic drugs and all, and the mental health of both those people. They had plenty of other targets and they had ammunition. They just stopped. Most people, because again, the goal here is to be famous, they want that casualty number as high as possible, and they will go until they get to determine how it ends, right? Because if they can determine how it ends, it makes them more in control. And that is almost always the case when somebody is countered. That is when their mindset starts to shift to ending their own life. Very, very rarely do these suspects in these active shooter incidents, very rarely do they try to escape. Very rarely.
And I think I can recall in the book On Combat by Dave Grossman, which I know it's got stuff in there that people disagree with and stuff. But I can recall, and I might be wrong, but I can recall a story that he told in there about a principal, I think it was, running up to a school shooter and just being like, "Stop!" and he just stopped.
Yeah, there's been more than one incident where a staff member just yells "stop" or just yells, "What are you doing?" And people think that, in some of those cases where at that point the shooter turns a gun on themselves, they think, "Oh, he had a change of heart." And the real answer, in my opinion, is that was him getting countered, right? That was that shooter being like, "Okay, jig's up, like, game's over, time to hit the reset button." And it could be a plethora of those things, right? It's not always one or the other. Of course, the most effective way is gunfire, right? Like, that's the most effective countering method. But it doesn't even take that in a lot of these cases. Again, most of which aren't super highly publicized. There's an incident of somebody like literally throwing a basketball at the shooter and then tackling him. Like, is that as effective as a firearm? Probably not. But was it effective for that? Very effective. So that idea of when did they stop? It's typically when they're countered, and the word countered can mean a million different scenarios.
Yeah. And that, thinking about like, what should the people there do, right? Like a dude throwing a basketball and tackle him. Like, that's something so simple. It's action. Take action. I think is the biggest lesson. There's definitely, like, okay, let's go back. I hate talking about Marine Corps stuff, but McNabb, right? One mind, any weapon.
All right. Yeah.
It's like, take something and hurt that guy with it. If you're there unarmed, which is a mistake, but take action. Like, and for myself, I've been, especially lately, posting my Instagram story, up things that have been happening in schools. One I want to do a live stream on is that subject alone, but they, Angry Cop, and it was the Unsubscribed podcast. They actually did a pretty serious one talking about how schools were covering up bad things that were happening. Mm-hmm. But my simple message is everyone should be homeschooling your kids. But that's not a reality for everyone. Not everyone can do that, especially like a single parent. How the fuck are they going to do that when they're working, multiple jobs and whatnot? But for teachers, I believe that teachers should be putting their kids' safety well before theirs. I don't think it's probably, I'm not a teacher. I know some. I have students who are teachers, but I'm not them. However, I think that is something that should be like a core principle for them. Mm-hmm. These kids are entrusted to my care. Mm-hmm. Therefore, this scenario, I have to do this thing. This other thing, I have to do this thing. It should be very clear to them, that they need to put the children's lives before their own. And also, thinking about what is a high school, right? For me, high school just got in the way of me going into the military. So it's there's, even a high schooler or a middle schooler, and also if the attacker is the same age as you, physically, there's probably not that much of a disparity aside from the weapon
setting. In a high school setting, we talk about elementary active shooter incidents versus high school active shooter incidents. Yeah, there's a lot of big differences. The biggest difference is the elementary school shootings are typically by someone who's not affiliated with the school.
Yep.
At the high school level, it's typically a student, right? So they know the school a little better. At the elementary level, those active shooter incidents, they're typically planned out, I guess you could say more elaborately. Whereas the high school shootings typically are a little less planned, give or take. But there are very big differences between just the age range of the school, because like you said, the high school, some of those kids are damn near adults that go to the school. Right. So, but like I said, the response in my opinion doesn't change. Is someone's got 30 seconds to do something. Right. And people have asked me, teachers, not teachers, whatever people that don't carry guns have asked me, well, what should I do if somebody comes into my space and starts hurting people with a firearm? And I always say, what would you do if somebody tried to steal your kid at Walmart when you were walking out in the parking lot? What would you do? And just do that. If you got a gun, better. But if you don't have a gun, just do that. You wouldn't let someone steal your kid from your shopping cart at Walmart. So fight back. That's, you have to counter. You have to do something right now. And I think that's what Columbine, that's been that large gap with Columbine of we keep having these incidents, we keep having more and more data, unfortunately, but I feel like sometimes we're not learning from the data, right? And that data is telling us you got 30 seconds or less, you got to do something. And if someone says, well, what do I do? And they don't carry a gun or they're not going to carry a gun, the answer is something. You got to do something, right? You got to be violent, you got to be quick. And once you start it, you don't stop it.
Yeah. And, don't hear me just telling people to break the law on the internet. Right. But I do want people to consider, because people are literally more afraid of getting in trouble in something they're not likely to actually get in trouble for than they are worried about dying or failing others and letting. Yeah. So it's like the North Hollywood shootout, those cops were not allowed to carry long guns in their car at the time. That shootout changed that eventually. But who's going to complain? Who would have complained if when those two guys came out with AKs and body armor, if a dude and started shooting back at him with something
and stopped it. Yeah.
a little bit better, because it was a
and
hard shot for them with pistols. It was far away,
Right.
and they were
You could say the
overwhelmed
same
at
thing
suppression.
about an active shooter incident. Let's say
Yeah.
there's a mall in some city that has a state law against concealed carry firearms or whatever. If it happens there, we can just use Chicago as an example. I think that's an easy one to use. If somebody is in that mall with a firearm, and they stop an active shooter, I mean, are they going to face charges? I think the data would tell you that they're probably not. Again, definitely don't break the law, but like the idea of like, what are you more scared about? Like, which outcome, but even the outcomes, in my opinion, like it doesn't change the idea that you just have to do something, right? Like, having different tools maybe make it more efficient on your end, but you have to do something.
Yeah. The biggest thing, that I tell people is, what can you live with? Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can live with going to jail for a lot of things and going to court for a lot of things, but but that's also because the consequence of not doing anything to me is much worse.
Yeah. And it's that idea of like, out of those 4 possibilities, like there's really only 2 categories, like hero and coward, right? Like that's it. And so if someone understands like kind of what those words mean, whatever category you fall into, if you're involved in one of these situations, like you get to word that the rest of your life, good, bad, or otherwise. Right. And we've heard it from other people before. We've all probably said it and had our own spin on it. Like, you got the rest of your life to live with that. Right.
Yep.
And you can win the fight, or you can survive, or whatever the buzzwords are now. But if it shortens your overall life because of how you responded and how society views you, then did you really survive? Did you really win?
Yeah.
Like we talk, like in police work, we'll talk about, make sure everybody goes home at the end of the shift, and, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but like if I'm in a wheelchair, paralyzed from my neck down the rest of my life, is that really a way to live? I don't know. Like, like that should weigh into your decision, I think, about how you respond to something. Whether it's active shooter stuff or otherwise, you have to live with that for the rest of your life. There's really only 2 categories, hero and coward, and whichever one you happen to fall into, like that's yours for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I like just so people listening, I know you would agree, but like being remembered as a hero is the more important thing. And
100%. Yeah.
And
whichever
because
one
like
you
people might
land
get
in.
confused about the wheelchair. It's like So being the hero is more important. And now people are gonna be like, oh, they think they're heroes and they're vigilante. I've gotten those fucking comments too.
Yeah, but like you have a say which label you wear after the incident. And so make sure that it's a label that you not only would wear, but that you would like proudly show to other people. And the tools and the gear you have, like, when it happens, like you got what you got, and I'm not going to judge somebody for having something or not having something. I think sometimes even with our own circle, or maybe as society, we think of, well, people that have guns have to stop these kind of incidents. And it's like, yeah, okay, sure. But like, people stop these incidents, right? People stop them. So you're a person. So it's just time to go do work.
Yeah, it's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's violence. It's chaotic.
Yeah,
it's unpredictable. I mean, there's data, but as far as like what's going to happen in that fight, like the active shooter certainly isn't thinking that there's going to be a dude who comes out, throws a basketball at him, and tackles them. That OODA looped the fuck out of that guy.
Right, or the dude that picks up a fire extinguisher and throws it across the food court, and then Leroy Jenkins him, like that, like that's a response, right? Is it as efficient as maybe having a firearm? Probably not, but like it's time to do something. And like I said, if your gun's in the car, then your gun's in the car, and it's the same analogy of like, most of us in here, like we don't leave all of our medical gear in the car because we know it would take too long to go get it, right? I mean, we have some in the car, but like hopefully we have at least something on us to stop massive blood loss, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have time to go to the car. Like you don't have time to send your wife and kids to the car and then come back to this incident. You just don't.
Yeah, the shit in my car is like more for car accidents. Or like
or
there
after
could
an
be
event's
other
over.
things. Yeah. After
like
it's over, I could throw
yeah.
my keys to someone. I could send my
Right.
wife out to the car.
Then you can go get it. You can drag that bag back in. You can start helping people once it's over. Yeah, agreed. So same kind of mindset with the medical gear is you just don't have time. And I hate to I keep harping on that because it's 100% the truth. And I think the more people realize that and they look at different incidents, which in the active shooter class, at least one of them that I teach, like it's just a bunch of like little snippets of each individual event. And the common theme with all of them is you don't have very much time to do something. And so I think that the more people understand that, and again, it's messy. It may not be easy to talk about if you're not in that mindset, if you're not in a profession that talks about that. I get it, but you have to do something, and it's going to be messy. But the quicker it's over, the better everybody is.
Yeah, and active shooter situation is also where it really matters to be competent at medical. And just think like, oh no, I can put a tourniquet on myself. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, good job. All right. How do you manage 9 casualties that happen in the first 30 seconds?
Yeah. How do you figure out where your 2 tourniquets go when there's 10 people that are bleeding, right? Even after the incident's over, you see 10 people that are shot. Like logic would tell me I need to give those 2 tourniquets to people that are most likely to have a positive outcome with the tourniquet, right? Not people that are, bleeding too less or too much, so there's all those kind of questions. But the biggest thing, and again, we talk about the books versus bookends, right? So the books is like the incident itself. Like when the shots ring out, that's what you got to focus on. The bookends are like, what were the warning signs before? What were all the things that before? And then the other side is, okay, now this is over. What do I do now? All of it's very important. But I feel like as a society, we focus too much on the bookends and not the books, right? We focus too much on how do we prevent these things from happening, all this kind of stuff. But we don't really talk a lot about like how important it is to stop it once it starts.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's true in the school setting or the public spaces setting. You got to focus on the books. That's where the majority of your training has to be when you are getting prepared for how to deal with these incidents.
Yeah. And something on like the having medical gear side, people need to realize like any trauma kit you buy is more of a beginner trauma kit. There's, like, oh, it's got 244 items. Yes. Half of those are alcohol pads. That's not good. And that's where like
I just want a bag full of tourniquets and some chest seals. Like I just want a bag full of tourniquets. That would honestly be the best. Like I want a duffel bag full of tourniquets, and some chest seals and a set of rubber gloves would be preferable. That's about it, for that kind of incident. Now, if you're on some other kind of detail, then your medical kit might be different, but a duffel bag full of tourniquets will get you a lot further. Like this is after the incident's over, right?
Yeah, I would want combat gauze with it, but just think, I like the way tactical response teaches their medical algorithm, which is the 5 Bs. There's a March algorithm too, which is okay, but it's like it's not as oriented towards like a civilian and an emergency. It's more has to do with like, and now we got to get them on a helicopter in some ways, but 5 Bs. And really, if we just think about the first 3 Bs, which are bad guys, bleeding, breathing, those are the things that are going to kill people the soonest. So being able to fix that, even if it was just you're fast at tourniquets, you quickly figure out where to put the seals on, and you pack the junctions, and like, okay, all right, that's probably going to be the most effective thing.
Yeah. And if we're talking about active shooters incidents specifically, I think a lot of people, and again, nothing wrong with medical gear, but I will tell you the locations in which victims get shot in active shooter incidents are usually not tourniquet solutions.
Yep.
Right. And the reason, if people listening, is because when you're standing still, you're much less likely to get hit in the arms and legs. Right. Not that tourniquets are bad or anything like that. another small thing that we talk about in the class, in one of the classes, is like, where are we likely to see wounds after an active shooter incident, right? And the answer is chest and head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are typically the places that people get shot. And depends on the kind of, firearm. Perhaps like in Columbine, there's actually a very large number of people that were paraplegic afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons was because there was a shotgun that was used, right? And there was like you could say center mass or whatever the buzzword is now, center of the body, center of the torso, and it was severing spinal cords, right? So, but other instances like Pulse nightclub and stuff like that, and Virginia Tech is probably the biggest example. People and Sandy Hook being the other example. People sitting stationary as the shooter continues to shoot people doesn't usually yield arm and leg hits, right? So something to be prepared, something to consider, that the medical gear you have, if it's a true active shooter incident, very well may not apply to the type of injuries that you'll see after the incident.
Yeah. And I believe also like Georgia Tech, a lot of people died hiding underneath a desk.
Well, that's what Columbine was in the library, right? It was underneath desks. It was leaning down, and it was engaging people. Again, stationary targets, as you know, as well or better than most. Like if you put force on force in somebody's hand, you tell two people to start running around, they get shot in their hands a lot, and they get shot in extremities a lot, right? But if you just gave me a force on force gun and you stood still, then I can kind of pick where the wound is, The same thing applies to an active shooter incident most of the time.
Yeah, and for people who don't really understand exactly what we're talking about, like think about this. When two guys are shooting at each other, they generally have their hands in line with their heart and brain, which are the target areas that people shoot at. So that's why people get shot in the hands a lot. That's why, like, as a martial skill, tourniquets are super important. One-handed shooting and manipulations are super important. Like, because, dude, I had one scenario.
And
I swear to God, I got shot in this arm 6 times. That's my right arm. So it's like, why do I even bother being right-handed?
Or like you said, if I get shot in the hand, what else do you think that bullet is probably impacting? The gun, right? So these guns, as you know, most people know, like they don't take much trauma before they decide to stop working. And some of them are even made out of plastic, like half of them are. So like the chances of the round disabling the gun, again, may not be super true to an active shooter incident because there's usually not like a two-way gunfire in an active shooter incident. But in general, like when people get shot, in general gunfights, you could say it's their hands, it's their extremities. In active shooter incidents, it's kind of the opposite, right? It's kind of the opposite. And so understanding that, one, because, surviving an extremity hit versus surviving a hit straight to your heart or to your brain should hopefully tell you how much more of an essence time is, right? Whenever we say, within 30 seconds, you got double digit casualties, most of the time that can relate to double digit fatalities, because of the wound locations.
Yeah. And like one big thing with that is like move, like it. Oh yeah. Even if you're unarmed, like move. If you're attacking them, move really fast. The idea of throwing stuff at them too is actually pretty smart. I had a conversation with Tom Holeby about this, and then I've tested it too. Like, like a bullet flying by you, like the crack noise will definitely make people do that, but they can't visually see it. Yeah. Unless they have super great vision, which clearly I fucking don't. But
I assumed you did with those glasses. I assumed it was like X-ray vision at this point.
Yeah, I got my my fucking dual ACOGs on. Everyone's bragging about dual tube night vision. I can see into the future and your
soul. Like a little lens that like goes down over it like an old EOTech. It just goes.
Anyway.
But throwing stuff. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because I have my own opinions about this.
So it's like, crack of a round flying by your head. It's scary. It is. I've had that. But you don't see the bullet, right? Yeah. So it's something. You can test. Like, you can just test with an airsoft gun. Put a mask on and shoot round. Just have the dude stand still and just shoot rounds all past his head. can't see it that much. You know, like, well, I guess a BB you might be able to, but probably a sim round's a little bit faster. Probably wouldn't be able to see that. However, if you throw something like this at them, people flinch. You know, like you've probably seen it trying to play catch with your kid for the first time. They're like that every time. It's a natural thing, is because you can actually see it, and your face doesn't like getting hit with stuff, so they flinch. So that's actually, I would, you know, not being the active shooter expert, but like in my brain, like pick up a thing, move quickly towards him, throw the thing at him if he looks at you at all, and then attack him the best you possibly can. But of course, carry your gun. That's way better than all that shit. But even if you have your gun, you're taking on the active shooter. Being good at movement matters. You know, like, you know, we saw in pistol cheat codes, like shooting on the move is really challenging, but at least be like not fucking static for him to hit you when he does try to shoot you.
Yeah, the whole throwing things is, there's different ways you can look at it. I think, again, as a society, like sometimes the tactic is taught. I'm just going to throw things at the person, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it from the standpoint of like throwing something is kind of like that jab in like boxing. Like you ain't knocking nobody out with the jab, right?
Right.
But it's distracting, or it potentially could be distracting, right? Could it also be enough that person would feel enough that they would just decide to end the situation? Perhaps. But we also don't know that reliably enough to say that that's a good tactic to do all the time. I would say if someone's going to throw something, like you got to do something else. Like there's nothing big enough in most places that could really hurt people. Like this microphone, maybe if I happen to have the microphone, but it's going to be a prelude to something else happening, right? Whether you're armed or whether you're not. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. And you hear more of those questions about throwing stuff from people that are typically unarmed. And so for those people, the answer is you have to do something. And we talk about, you know, sneaking up or movement. If throwing something is giving away your position before you want to give away your position, then maybe it's probably not a good idea. Like if I'm unarmed and I'm running up behind somebody who's shooting people and I throw something at them, that's going to cause them to turn around, you know, and that's going to take the element of surprise. So throwing stuff is like this, could be a whole nother like podcast that we could talk about. Like there's times to do it, there's times not. I think it gets really convoluted, gets really confusing for some people, because some people are like taught that it's a surefire way, you know, to like stop somebody. And I think the answer is you should be more concerned about the element of surprise and what happens after you throw something, and also knowing there's nothing around you that's probably big enough for you to A, throw it fast enough, and for B, for it to really incapacitate somebody, with the exception of throwing bullets at them.
Yeah. It's I kind of view it as, well, I guess slightly different kind of, but yes, I totally agree. If you can surprise them and come up behind them and choke them to death or disarm them or something,
or just tackle them to the ground, and other people start to help you. I think in the unarmed space of active shooter incidents, it is taught as a effective countering method, when really it's that jab in boxing. That's what it is. And if we spend too much time focusing on the importance of that, I think we're really doing a disservice, because we're focusing on something that is, in my opinion, just not effective by itself. Like alone by itself, that's not an effective way to do something. Granted, you are doing something, but the best way is to get your hands on them, because if you're close enough to throw something at somebody and to hit them with any kind of force, you're probably also like a second away from physically being able to touch them.
It's
so
more
just
in
go physically touch them.
The close with thing that I was visualizing.
And I think if we teach it like that, it's okay. But I think, if I throw a basketball at someone who's shooting people and then I tackle them, good, right? If I throw a basketball at them and then I stand there and wonder why the basketball did not incapacitate them, it's probably not going to change the situation a whole lot. So there's a lot of like the fine minutia, again, more in like the consulting space that I do with people that typically are unarmed. That's typically where those questions come up. I know with most of the people that are listening, they usually have a means to throw something at about 1,200 feet per second, which is very effective.
Yeah. It's more of a just think of relieve the ballistic pressure on you so you can close with and apply physical pressure.
Yeah, and like I said, I think about like if I am behind somebody and they turn around, it's going to be harder for me to tackle somebody when they're facing me than if I hit them from behind or from the side, right? So, and then you add in if they have a rifle and they turn around towards me, now I've got to deal with tackling them and potentially trying not to get shot at the same time. So again, I'm not saying don't throw stuff at people, just understand that I think sometimes it's not as clear cut of an effective technique.
Yeah, because it's a thing that's
by
been,
itself.
It's been like I've seen it on the news and stuff where they're talking about we're going to keep buckets of rocks in the classroom so that we collectively can throw rocks. It's like, of course, my thing is like that teacher should have a bunch of bullets and a gun. And probably 2 guns. And you did touch on having a second gun. It's like a lot of people don't realize the purpose behind the second magazine isn't necessarily so that I can shoot more bad guys. I can give examples of like I've broken plenty of magazines just by them hitting the ground when empty, not even loaded.
Or just looking at it a funny way. Off. Now it doesn't work.
Yeah. Clint Smith, he was when he was a cop, he was getting out of his cop car and the base plate of his magazine hit like the steering wheel or something and just ripped all the rounds out of his gun. So it's like, I have my effective tool and that little fucking piece of plastic at the bottom renders it useless because you don't carry a spare mag. By carrying a spare gun, spare mag, mandatory. Like, at one point I was carrying 3 guns just to prove that it's not hard to carry 1 gun. Now I'm carrying 2 guns because that 3rd gun was a piece of shit and I had to send it back to the company. And now they want to charge me money to clean it, which is not the problem with it, which is very irritating. There might be a video on that. But I hope we can fix it.
And not that it relates a whole lot to after shooter incidents, but I always say, I don't know if you agree or disagree, like the biggest reason I carry a backup gun is to have the ability to arm somebody else.
Yep,
I think that is for me, because I carry a spare magazine for the primary gun that I carry. But for me, I don't carry a backup gun with the intent or the probability that I'm going to like run out of it with this one. Like I carry it because like there's a chance somebody who I'm with typically is unarmed and I'm going to give it to that person, maybe in that active shooter incident, maybe not, I don't know. But like being able to arm somebody else, I think is often overlooked for the importance of carrying a backup gun.
Yeah. Caveat to that too. There's also like, I can think of people I know that like, I basically only hang out with people who train nowadays, but like, thinking about like, your brother has never taken a class. He's completely incompetent with a gun. You might not arm him. That gun might actually be better in your own hands in your possession.
I think it, like we talked about earlier with the active shooter stuff, like the level of competency with people who've intervened with armed citizens who've intervened in these situations is actually pretty low. So like I would argue, again, I would argue for training, of course, but I would argue if you have someone who has shot a gun before and understands how it works and understand how the sights work, like their chances of being able to prevail if they were armed are actually pretty high. In the class that I think I'll teach at the summit about the Greenwood Park Mall shooting, I have a picture of the gun that Eli Dicken used. And when you look at it and you look at the sights on the gun, you'll be like, holy fuck, how did he even get hits with that? Right? I won't give it away here. You have to come take the class. But like you would look at it and you would say, how did he do that? And the answer is he did it because he did it. Like
he's done it before, probably on the range.
No, well, here's the thing. Spoiler alert: Eli Dicken has never taken a class before.
Well, but he's probably shot on the range a bit.
Yeah. He has taken the gun to the range. He has shot around. His grandfather kind of showed him how the sights work, all that stuff. But Eli dropped that guy with full metal jacket, blazer brass. Like that's what was in that gun, right? Just to show you, like, not to make fun of him, but just to show you, like, he didn't understand that. Like he just had ignorance when it came to that stuff, and it didn't matter.
I think he's a fucking beast. Like for
he's
for just reacting and you'd be like, oh, I gotta do this now. And
but like
he crushed it.
Some of the intricacies of like how he did it and what he did it with, I've been guilty of it. I'm sure some other people in the chat have been guilty of like, well, I've got to have the gun with the fancy laser dot, and I got to have, and that's good. Like, I'm not saying that stuff's bad, but like when we talk about arming other people, if they're familiar with how a gun works and how the sights work, statistics, especially an active shooter incident, will tell you that's probably good enough. Yeah. Like, it's a hard thing for us as instructors to say, but like statistically, it usually is good enough for these people to intervene against the shooters.
I'm more thinking about, and I'm thinking about specific people right now in my life.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're thinking about,
I'm more thinking about the person where it's like if you were to hand them a gun, it would instantly like, wow.
Yeah.
It like that would be happening.
Yeah,
like the extreme incompetence. I'm like, there's certain people that I know that I'm like, no, if there's an active shooter, I wouldn't like reward this guy with my gun. Like, I feel like it's more effective in my hands in this situation.
But like typically those people
I'd be more comfortable leaving my 10-year-old with that gun in the bathroom than I would those people.
Yeah, and I understand. Like, I also have people that I associate with from time to time. I don't typically hang out with those people on purpose.
Yeah, you can't.
And so, like, my example, I think, would apply to a lot of spouses. There's a lot of spouses that have been to the range. Maybe they've taken A class, maybe they haven't, and they understand like when you press this part and that front sight's got to be on the thing you want to shoot. Like in active shooter situations, when citizens have got involved, Eli Dicken being one of the examples, probably the biggest example. That usually is good enough. Like I'm not saying that's where we should stop with training, of course, but like, I think sometimes, people want to get way into the weeds on stuff. And when it comes to this, like you deciding to get in there and to take action outweighs in some cases your levels of competency. Like that's just hard to hear sometimes. Like your ability to get involved in the fight is the single most important thing you can do when it comes to an active shooter event. Having good gear helps, having good ammo helps, having good sights, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. But if you take your wife and kids to the car and you've got that staccato with the laser dot on it and the fancy, good ammunition in it, and you've got a backup staccato, let's say, and there's a staccato on your ankle, if you wait too long to get back in there, that doesn't mean shit.
Now we're pouring 3 staccatos at once. Hell yeah.
Yeah, nothing. And if you have 3 staccatos, then you probably live in your car, I'm assuming.
Probably. My Bellatrix thing is I just throw staccatos at the target because I have so many.
Yeah, they're fucking heavy. So, that's the whole thing is like, your ability to make a decision to get involved and do the right thing, probably, especially in active shooter stuff, far outweighs probably the like super fringe level, high level of competency. And then, so yeah, I think
war in Ukraine
people get wrapped around the axle.
Like the war in Ukraine right now is not being fought by dudes who fucking train regularly. The Revolutionary War was not won by, like fucking hardcore veterans and badass competition shooter. It was won by people with balls.
Yeah, and guns. Yeah,
and guns. Yeah, they needed that. They
there are people
that show up with buckets of rocks.
They didn't show up buckets of rocks or staplers or whatever. Like they showed up with guns, and they had you could say a basic understanding of how they worked. They probably had a low level, 0 level of tactics, for the most part, but they had the understanding that they have to do something right now, that this event requires their participation and here's the desired outcome and here's how we do it. And as 100% transferable to, active shooter incidents of like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this thing is happening. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that you probably need a firearm to be the most effective at stopping it. And then it doesn't take a genius to know that you have to go do it, that you can't wait on somebody else, or that waiting on somebody else isn't maybe the best option in most cases.
Now, I'm just going to give a couple statements. I want you to give a couple statements, and then let's hit the comments. So just kind of like a summary, lessons learned from this. So, and you can repeat the same things I say because, like, it's not wrong, if you, kind of like the name one thing you learned. It's like, he said my thing. Now I didn't learn anything,
Well, then it's important. Let's say it twice. Yeah.
So number one, carry your fucking gun, carry your fucking medical, be really competent with it. Number two, if there is an active shooter, get in there and stop them now. And yeah, that's my main message. Teachers, you are responsible for your students' lives. Fucking act like it. Okay, Zach, go ahead.
So I would say probably similar to the first one. If I was to use specifics, I would say you got 30 seconds to stop this. That's what I would tell people. I don't care what kind of clothes you're wearing. I don't care what your job is. I don't care your age. I don't care if you got a 1-month-old baby in your arms when this shit happens. You've got 30 seconds, and when that ticker starts, 30 seconds starts. So that's similar to what you said. I would say more specific. You got 30 seconds, and that's probably on the larger end of the scale. Sometimes, like in Eli Dickens' case, you may have far less. So you got to do something. It helps to know what you're going to do before you do it, right? Like you don't necessarily have to like war game it in your mind every 20 seconds, but you got to know, like, am I going to have a gun or am I not going to have a gun, right? Whatever your decision is your decision, but you got to know that you still have to act one way or another. So if you don't got a gun, this is what I'm going to do. If you got a firearm, this is what I'm going to do. The end result's the same, is you have to do something to physically stop their actions, right? Whether you use little tiny bullets to stop their actions, whether you use your fist or your arms, your body, or a fire extinguisher or a broom, you got to do something that's effective. And you got 30 seconds to do it. That would be the biggest thing in my classes that I harp on, that I teach, is there's a timeline. All this is just time and math. You have to take your emotions out of it. You have to take what you heard on the TV about it. You got to take what your buddy who was a cop one time in a different state told you about active shooters. You got to take all that and get it out. It's just a stopwatch, except you don't know when the stopwatch starts, right? The only say you have is when that stopwatch stops, right? To use the analogy that we would jokingly understand is like, there's the fuck around and there's the find out phase. That time in the middle, you got to make that the shortest time as possible, right? You have to take them to the find out stage real quick. How you do it's up to you, right? If you have questions about more effective ways to do it, like come take a class with me or you or a bunch of other people. But you got to shorten that timeline between fuck around and find out. And preferably you got to do it within 30 seconds.
Right on. Now, reminder, guys, Combat Arts Summit coming up September 27th and 28th in Gray, Kentucky at Tapac Ridge. We're going to hit some comments. If you have got a question or anything like that, please throw them in now. Everyone who said hello and stuff like that, I am saying hello to you right now because I don't like reading every single comment. But what's up, everyone? I see them all right now, okay?
Yes.
It's just for the purpose of the video.
Oh, I see one at the bottom. It wasn't really a question. It reminded me of something. So Definitive Training Solutions, I've mentioned it before. I won't get into specifics, but if you work at a school full-time and you carry a gun on your person while you're at a school, you take any Definitive Training Solutions class for free as long as it's not sold out. If someone out there is listening and you are a school resource officer or there's lots of schools, private and public, at least around where I live, that allow teachers to be armed, right? If you fit in one of those categories and you carry a firearm and you are an employee at a school, like when there's kids there, you take any of my classes for free, any location, as long as it's not sold out, of course. Just want to make sure I threw that in there because I'm sure some people watching may fall into that category or they may know someone that, could use a class and maybe the money is a barrier to getting them into that first class.
And I'll do the same for school resource officers and people who carry a gun out of school. With a caveat, do not come to class and say any gay shit about I have to do it this way for my qualification. Your qualification's a joke. Okay. It's like, oh, but I have to reload this way for my qualification. Practice that the day before. It's not that big of a deal. When you're in class, be a good fucking student.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
And you're 100%. Yeah. That applies to any class I teach. That's actually in for every class that's in the first part of the thing is like, you're essentially there to learn how I do things. And when you leave, if you want to do a different way, then great. But like you're there to learn from me. That applies to whether you get the class for free or whether you pay for it.
I plan on doing a a live stream on how to be a good student. And that's one of them is like when you're in class, fucking be there to learn, be a good student. I've cut
because
ties
even if
with
you don't
people
pay
when
for
they
the
love
class, like you're still there, like it's still your time. So
Yeah.
use it wisely. You know, as long as I'm not asking you to do something like unsafe, and if I am, then ask me and we'll discuss it. But outside of something crazy like that happening, like if I say to reload the gun this way or I say to do this way, like I expect, you know, everyone hopefully to be a good student. But I understand we have first time students, we have people that have training habits. I've been a student before where I've been in a class, I won't mention names, and you know they'll say something and I'll just have to remind myself, let's do it their way. Let's throw our hands up before we draw our gun for some reason. Like I still don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
And I've asked that person several times in the class and afterwards, and I don't understand why someone would ever do this before they draw the gun. But I did it. Like in the class, I was the best fucking hand thrower up person ever. Like I was doing it exactly how I was told. So
I was really good at attempting to put my rifle on safe after it went click when it won't go on safe.
Or
because I was told to, you know.
Or when I'm trying to reload an AK and I got to put the safety on, then remind the instructor that, hey, in fact, this thing doesn't. You can't load it with the safety on.
Amazing.
He doesn't. But I did it that way at least until I could explain how I couldn't. So
it's funny. There's I have a friend who when he teaches, he tells everyone to put it on safe when they're changing position, doing a malfunction, or reloading. And recently he's been getting into AKs, and I watch. I'm like, you're not putting it on safe anymore for anything, are you? So I'm excited to talk to him about that.
Or if you put a 870 shotgun in their hand, had them do a shotgun class, they're probably not. They're probably not reactivating that safety right next to the trigger every single time it comes off their cheek.
Yeah, let me do combat loads with fucking make sure I put it on safe during that part where the action's open and it's unloaded.
Yeah, but I took a shotgun class recently where the instructor wanted you to put it on safe at any time it broke your cheek weld, right? Again, I disagree, but I did it, you know, and I struggled. And if anything, it gave me a little more dexterity with the safety on the 1301, you know, so I got it, but it's like right there by the trigger. And you know, but as a student, you know, just like you would, like I did it the best I could. I'm sure I forgot a couple times because I wasn't used to doing it that way, but that's why we take classes. And you know, the whole thing for, you know, school employees, you know, that carry guns taking free classes for me isn't because I want to give them every one of my classes for free, right? Like it's because I want them to be but I want them to be inspired by my class, so they go take a class from you or from Gary or for Sonny, right? Like that's the point, is to kind of get them on this journey, and we all got on this journey in different ways, right? Some of us had to be kicked in the ass a little bit and pushed on the journey. Some of us just took off running on our own, right? And so that's the other reason why I offer that is to, you know, not have them come take all my classes for free and be the most frugal person ever, which I could appreciate like on a personal level. I want them to be able to go and kind of just realize how important this is and continue down that path.
Yeah. So if you're a person who carries a gun out of school and you want free classes, come take either one of our classes for free. Yeah. Just send some sort of certification so we know you're not just some random guy. And and also I'll give another caveat, another problem I've had. If you don't wear a duty belt, a battle belt while you're carrying your gun in the school, don't do that on the range. Fucking carry it concealed the way you would. Holy shit. No one cares about your qual day.
And the other caveat I would give, at least for me, I'm sure you'd agree, is, you know, if somebody comes and tells me that they carry a gun in school and, you know, they show some kind of certification or some kind of, you know, thing that shows they're a employee, that information is between us. Like I don't go and tell, just like I would never go and, you know, tell somebody else that, oh yeah, like Jimmy, I know Jimmy. Oh yeah, Jimmy's a mechanic. He's an auto mechanic. Like I would never tell anyone that. Obviously there might be evidence of you being in the class at some point, but like I would never tell anyone, you know, when, where, or how you carry a gun. Just like I wouldn't tell someone who's an auto mechanic, I wouldn't tell how he carries a gun to anyone else. So that information is not shared between me and anyone else, whether you work at a school or not. So I just want to make sure that I put that caveat in there as well.
So we got Mark Curtis, one of my students. He said, "Sweet, I want to get all did I say Clark Curtis? Mark Curtis. Mark, all Clark County school resource officers to take that class." And
where's Clark County at? Because there's like probably 20 Clark.
I forget. He came to my class in
Okay.
Tennessee.
So Florida. Yeah, sure. And then the other caveat, since we're on this, is I won't do a free class just for for people that work in the school. So it has to be a class that I'm already teaching, right? Because somebody came to me once and said, "Oh yeah, like I want all of our SROs to come take your class for free," and I said, "Well, I have to like sell the minimum number of spots in order to teach the class." So in this type of case, if it was a class that was already being put on, if there's people at that place that want to come, if there's open spots, then obviously the offer stands.
And I was thinking about this one too, but he also mentioned there's the clock tower guy in Texas in the 60s shot a bunch of people.
Yeah, it was Texas. Yeah, in Texas. I forget what college that was, and I forget the number of casualties he had. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, that was one of the. But that was in an outdoor setting. Again, not that it's not an active shooter incident, right? But it was not inside of a building, which is where most have happened since Columbine.
Yeah. I mean, there's, of course, the Vegas shooting. The Vegas shooting would have been really hard for anyone in the crowd to handle. But, carrying your medical, like fucking everyone could have brought medical to that concert,
Yeah.
I bring medical to things like that. If I can't sneak a gun in.
Like the whole Las Vegas one is, people have asked me, like, oh, can you do like a presentation on that? And like, I can, but like, there's no information about that one, right? I'm not trying to get all conspiracy theory about this, but like,
there's a reason for that.
There's nothing out there. Like there should be thick leather bound books of all the information that we have about that. And we don't. That's aside from the point. In that case, an outdoor setting where you can't realistically engage the shooter, like what do you do? The answer is you just get away, like you have to distance yourself from the people that are being shot. And so if you notice in that crowd, there are many people who are just staying there, and if everybody would have got up that instant and just dispersed, that probably would have had a better outcome. So again, that's another topic, but the Vegas shooter, that one is like, still there's a lot of anomalies, but people don't understand, like there's no official report on that. Like there's no official government agency report on that. And that should concern you, not to get very conspiracy oriented on an internet stream.
Yeah, well, it's because you have a real job. I will.
I know, yeah. Whenever I can grow a beard and be a Florida man, maybe I'll have a different answer.
Yeah, well, rage quit your job so you can. Quit being lazy about it.
I love
it. We just had an active shooter at FSU last week, gun-free zone. Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, anything gun-free zone is going to be targeted, and there's, like one of the pieces of footage that I saw from that was like, and I'm assuming it was the actual shooters, but people were held up in a room, had the door closed and locked, and got banged like, "Hey, please come on out," and that's a good subject to cover, because I think about someone's kid locked up in the room, and how would someone go about handling that? Like
if you're the person locked in, or
do the police have a way to unlock every door, or what's going on there?
It depends. If it's just like a standard door, like a regular door you would find in a commercial space, eventually somebody will have the means to remove that door. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, and even if it has some kind of a barricade device, or even if you put some kind of a barricading device on it to barricade yourself in there, at some point, somebody will come with enough equipment to remove the door. So I would say, unless you are 100% sure that it's safe, then let them remove the door, right? But if you can reasonably assume, like it's been a long time since you've heard gunfire, right? And you hear other people talking and, things that would make you believe the incident's over, then that's a call you can make. But understand also, like, if they want that door removed, they'll find a way to remove it. Meaning the police, like the good guys will.
SSRIs lead to apathy and increased violent tendencies in bad doses. Yep. And it's been a common thing. If you guys look at, stuff behind all these shooters, it's not, I don't necessarily think it's just that they're like a psychopath or a sociopath. It's also they're put on drugs. Like you look at, especially the Sandy Hook shooter. Like his face is very unnerving looking at him, you know.
Yeah, I think there's some like it would depend. Like in general, like I'm not anti-medication. However, in some cases, like the medication is not paired up with some kind of therapy and some kind of something to judge if it's working or not. But I would agree. Like since Columbine, the majority of these active shooter perpetrators have had a long history of different kinds of antipsychotic drugs. Like there's no way to say that that's not a thing, to what level is debatable, but like almost all of them have some stuff on board. And someone could make the argument that in some of those cases that was a contributing factor.
Yeah, Ethan Green. Have you met Ethan Green before?
Oh, no, I met Ethan Green. Ethan's taken a bunch of my classes.
Oh yeah, right on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ethan. Like I think I've known Ethan longer than I've known you. So,
yeah,
yeah. Ethan,
extremely based.
Yeah, Ethan. Ethan has a lot of opinions. Like I think mostly are good, but he's Ethan's a good dude. When I was teaching in Ohio, like when I first started teaching outside of or like kind of out in Ohio, I just messaged him, was like, hey, you want to come take a class? And he's like, sure. And he just kept coming, and he finally just would help me because I was like, this dude knows like a lot, like, so yeah, Ethan's a good dude. I met him like way back 10, 12 years ago when he was like much younger. Ethan's a good dude.
Says give free classes to high school kids. Youre gave me a free class. Youre had the money to do that also. I'll just say that.
yeah, there may be some other dynamics there. But like I said, anyone that works at the school full-time carries a gun while they're at school while kids are there. If you have questions about if you qualify, talk to me in private, and we'll figure out if you qualify for that or not.
Need to train with Garrett. Submachine Garrett. Need to train with the backup gun. Small guns are different than big guns. Yeah, I need to. Fucking... Yeah, like my backup gun is, I'm definitely concerned about the effective range I have with that.
That's actually one class that I have like written up. I've never actually taught it.
Is a revolver class?
Well, it's a backup gun class.
I know. I'm saying like your revolver class.
Like the revolver class. I create these things and I just sit them in the corner forever. But the backup gun class, at least the way I see it, again, the way I would teach it. There's shooting, of course, for sure, but it's a lot of like, how do I carry this? Where do I carry this? How do I get to it in these weird situations? Just as much or more than there is the actual like trigger pressing part. Because I feel like with backup guns, that's a huge consideration.
I carry a spare gun for a female family member. I am not carrying a gun for a dude. I can understand that.
I guess
they're also,
I guess it depends on the dude, right? Is your 12-year-old son a dude? Like, I don't know.
It's also I don't know. That, like you said, if the dude knows how to like aim at a thing and press the trigger and hit the thing, might actually be good to have him there.
Yeah. But the female family member is probably the biggest example of what we were talking about.
Yes,
I would agree with that.
And then north of is that Louisville or Louisville? I'm not sure.
I would say at Louisville.
Okay. Kentucky.
I don't know how you Florida people say it. The Clark County. Oh yeah, okay. Now I know where he's talking about. Yeah, that's not too far from me.
Yeah, Mark, just email Zach.
Yeah, just get a hold of me, and we'll. If you're around Louisville, you're not far from me. Let me know if we can find a location. Again, I have to sell the class like to go there, or if it's a private class. But yeah, just hit me up. If it's a bunch of school cops that want to take training, like we'll make it work.
All right. So, hey, what's the next class do you have coming?
The next class is a shotgun class in Ohio, but it's sold out. And then after that, I think the muster is the next, like August is the next class. We got the muster in August in Pennsylvania with Gary Marr, Trimus Dynamics. And then 2 weeks after the muster, I'm teaching an active shooter class in Pennsylvania, like the middle of August. And then after that, it's Vegas for shotgun. And then it is your summit. And I think that's my year as of right now.
Right on. Yeah, I'm excited. I'll see you at the muster and at the summit.
Oh yeah.
You know, it'd be cool too. It's looking like we could host stuff at the gym, and we got jujitsu mats there.
Yeah.
And he's like, the owner's like, yeah, nothing, no one's here on the weekends, so we potentially we could do, you know, I'll send you footage of the what the gym looks like, but I think potentially we could do an active shooter class there too, just force on paper, or force on force if you want, but we just have to do a good job cleaning after.
Yeah, we could do that, or at the very least, like we can do like lecture-based stuff if that would, you know, would draw more people in. You know, whatever. I'm doing the like force on paper stuff. We'd have to really hammer out details because it's got to be, you know, like it's really got to be live fire in my opinion. But we could, if it's a jiu-jitsu place, we can at the very minimum do like a series of lectures or something else. So yeah.
Yeah, or we could do like an entangled gunfighting. I think he'd be cool with running sim guns in that area. We just have to make sure no one else is there.
Yeah, I've considered doing an entangled without live fire, and I think I would. I just haven't done it yet.
Oh yeah, no, you'd be fine without because you could even do those same drills that were live fire, just force on paper, and it would have the same. Yeah, it would do the same thing. It's just
the only thing in entangled that we do live fire for is the retention shooting, right? Which I have a retention shooting class separately, but yeah, I mean, I just haven't done it yet, but I could work out a gym that just wants the entangled gunfighting, as long as, like, I had one reach out to me that was local, but he was renting it, and I was worried that the force on force UTM rounds were going to screw up the drywall, and like there was glass everywhere, and it just wasn't, you know, like we would have had to put tarps over everything because he didn't own the building. He was, you know, he was a tenant, and there was like a little Zumba fitness club next to it. And so as long as like that stuff's not a factor, we can make it work. But like the UTM rounds, they do tear up drywall, and they do, you know, potentially nick or break glass depending on. So as long as we can work those details out, I'm more than happy to teach that class in a 1 day, like inside non-live fire environment for sure.
Cool. How should people contact you?
Yeah. So social media, I guess I'm most active on Facebook. So you can just message the Facebook page. You can, it's definitivetrainingsolutions.com. Is the website. If you go on Bulletin, if you're familiar with that, we're on Bulletin. I put my stuff on Bulletin like pretty much after I put it on my website. So Bulletin, definitivetrainingsolutions.com, or Facebook. If you want to get a hold of me, you just send me a message on Facebook is probably, or send the message, the page, a message on Facebook, and I'll respond to you that way. Probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Sounds good. I put all those links in the description already.
Oh, sweet.
Because I'm so fucking good at this.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. I put your YouTube channel last.
Oh, like 3 videos on it? Is that why you put it last?
There's almost 11 videes.
Yeah, I think I've taken. Actually, I think it's gone down in videos over the past year because I pulled stuff off there that I don't want on there anymore. I haven't done anything with YouTube, which there's somebody that keeps telling me to do more YouTube stuff, and you might be the person I'm talking about. But yeah, the YouTube page, the Instagram, I'm terrible at that stuff, which is no excuse. But Facebook is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Message the page. Check out Bulletin. That shows all of our classes like listed, and my website has them all on there, but you kind of got to like pick which one you want. I would check that out, and then just whether it's active shooter stuff or just training in general, just get a hold of me.
Sounds good. All right, guys. So if you actually want training, hit up Zach and let him know, especially my Florida people, because I want to bring him down. So like, just send him a message of like what you want. Yeah. And if you want the easier way to do that, you have my phone number. Go ahead and text me right now. I know some of the people watching have my number. But just you got to make it happen. And it's okay to harass Zach, message him 3 times a day, mostly at night, and it'll be okay. He's excited to see.
I'll be fast asleep in about 30 minutes. So you can message me, but don't expect a response.
All right, bro. I really appreciate this. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, man.
Tell your wife thank you, and also next time it's gonna be 3 hours long, and just expect it.
Well, she's already told me for every every 30 minutes this goes longer than she thought, she needs 2 bars of soap. So from that point,
Oh, goddamn. Well, that's fine. I don't make that shit. Hey, babe, make 2 more bars. He's in there right now. For Zach's wife, hurry up.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bro. Take it easy. I'm gonna talk to the people a little bit longer.
All right, I'm gonna bounce. See you.
All right, later. All right, guys. So thank you all for watching. Now, coming up, I'm about to go to North Carolina this next weekend, unless I'm totally fucked up on that. I'm gonna go bring up the website real quick, and I'm gonna go to calendar, something that some people aren't able to do. It seems like it's like, how much are your classes? I don't know. If only someone made a website. Oh wait, it's right there. All right, so coming up May 3rd and 4th, we're gonna do pistol cheat codes, and then we're gonna do proving grounds pistol force on force. So pistol cheat codes. I did a good video with tactical response last week talking about it. Hey, check this out. I'm going to throw up a link for signing up for both of those at the same time, which is super awesome and super handy. Right there, you can do multiple classes. It actually does cost money. It just shows $0 because all the prices are different depending on how many classes are in a row. But yeah, pistol cheat codes. It is a heavy into technique development and diagnosis, and we are pushing people towards being super good at shooting while moving really fast. That is the end state of it. When we look at most shooters who we find to be really good, when you watch them shoot on the move, they move as slow as my mother walking. So that's not real movement. We want to get people better at real movement. And I'm not saying that you are always going to be moving. There's definitely times to be sacked, times to move fast, times to move slow, times to move quietly, times to move aggressively, all that. But heavy into technique development and diagnosis. So that's coming up this Saturday, May 3rd in Newton, North Carolina. And then proving grounds pistol. Think about any of your fighting pistol type classes. Where it's about gunfighting with a pistol. We're doing those types of drills, but against each other. Hey, you'll learn a lot about your how you actually move in that class too. I used to have an approach of like we're gonna burn each other down and just get stress inoculated. Now it's way heavier into technique, way heavier into there's a phrase John Holshin used that was 3 to 5 second tactics. So like, what do we do right here in this moment? Thinking about how fast gunfights normally go for civilians. We're doing drills like that. Okay. We aren't just burning each other down though. There's actually a lot of dummy gun work to develop how exactly we do that. Then after that, Coast to Coast Tactical, May 10th in Leesburg, Florida at Area Strength Facility. I'm taking that class. The owner of that company, pretty cool dude. You can go to his website, check it out. Then Mayaka, Florida, pistol cheat codes again, and proving grounds pistol again. And that is May 17th and 18th in Mayaka, Florida. And then might have to reschedule patrolling the homestead in Somerset, Ohio. I got to talk back to him again. I think there might only be 2 slots left for combat shotgun in June 8th at Area Strength Facility in Leesburg, Florida. So if you want to take that class, sign up right now because there's not many slots left. Then New London, Ohio, pistol cheat codes and proving grounds pistol. If you notice, I like putting those 2 classes together. They combine very nicely. It is a very good experience to take them both. That's where the multiple class sign up is on the screen. And you can sign up for them both without having to go to multiple things. But you can also just sign up for them individually if you just go to the calendar, which I'll throw in the comments right now. And then I got a bunch of other classes coming up, but they're further in the future. So I'll have to post about those and do some more videos about those and stuff. But right now, here you go. Combat Art Training calendar is linked in the comments, so check that out. And then I can hang out with you guys for a little bit. So I should go to defense. Him and I are going to be doing a live stream, I believe Wednesday at 5. I have to double check. I might be totally crazy on that. I should just go ahead and schedule it. Hey, bro, send me a cool picture of you to throw on the screen with the thumbnail. Lewis, you guys want to work out with me in the AM? I'm going to be up super late sewing radio bags. My sleep schedule is not conducive to the AM. It's more like I go to sleep super late right now, so I'm not going to be able to make that happen. But I do want to actually shift my schedule here coming up in the future. But I'm about to be in North Carolina, and Evan might poison my food if I don't bring him a bunch of radio bags. So I'm going to bring a bunch of radio bags. What are you doing on Wednesday? Isn't that when we're doing the live stream together? That's what I thought. But I'd have to go back and look at our text messages together. But yeah, we're going to talk about some World War II stuff, some things that people don't understand because all they know about World War II is in our history books about our country and then what we see in movies and shit. So we were having a good discussion on the phone. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's do a live on this. Do a live. Pistol cheat codes right there on the screen, of course. And then Proving Grounds Pistol, the follow-on class to that. Any other comments y'all got? Anything y'all want to say? I know people are watching. I see the number up there. Something I want to kind of touch on that we should do a live stream on later is, if you think about, like, we're all in this martial lifestyle together, right? I've started to notice the older I get that dudes that don't have children don't necessarily think about the future the same way. There are certain things that are very important that we all need to be focusing on, but one thing we do need to also do is acknowledge evil. You don't have to like zoom in on that and just look at that 24/7, but we do need to be more aware of it because a part of changing culture for the better, we have to acknowledge evil for that. To take violence seriously, we have to acknowledge evil. We have to take evil seriously. There's such a thing as good and evil. And, kind of one closeout message, and it does follow the same topic of active shooters. There's a lot of really bad things going on, and we are on purpose distracted so that we don't pay attention to it. So take violence seriously. Take evil seriously. And be good. Now, last thing, I'm going to shout out the Combat Art Summit again. Everyone on the list, I got to get Tom on the list. I have to do website stuff. He'll have a link too. But everyone on the list for instructors has a discount code for the summit. So you can hit up one of the instructors if you've already trained with them. If you're an alumni of theirs, you can get $100 off of the summit. Again, 4 different areas, and they'll all be having classes going on at the same time. So especially if you're a dude who's like only had a gun class or only a permit class or something like that, this is the way to quickly speed up and learn what you need to be practicing to get proficient. And it's going to open your mind to a lot of new things. I really want people to bring new shooters to it. Like, even though I'm not having any of the instructors do basic level stuff, I feel like as in, I'm not saying it's going to be the craziest, most advanced thing ever. I'm saying, like, I don't want it to be like NRA basic pistol in any of the classes. Okay. And there's going to be enough instructors there too, where if there's someone who needs a little bit more individual attention, that instructor can go ahead and help out that dude while the other instructor teaches the class. That's not going to be an issue. And all the instructors that are going to be there love fucking teaching. But I would really like to see it if you guys did bring some new people. Like, hey, come to this. It's going to be fun. multiple classes going on, lots of hangout time. Like it would be really good to bring someone and get them exposed to like, oh, this isn't just about having my permit. This isn't just about being good at shooting. Like the martial lifestyle, understanding what that really means. So tell people about it, spread the word. Just like seriously, if you just take that link and copy paste it into a couple groups, including groups that don't like us, I don't care. Go ahead. But even just on your wall on Facebook, that would go so far. It's going to help out all the instructors. It's going to help out me. You're going to be doing a good thing if you just simply share it with someone else. And if you get someone else to come, like that literally could change someone's life. That could possibly save a life if you expose someone to training. It could be something as simple as they realize medical has a lot to it, so I don't want to get in a car accident. That could save potentially 8 people at once, right? So we think about saving lives, changing culture for the better, and advancing the art. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're trying to do with the Combat Art Summit. So please share that. Now I'm going to take one last look at the comments. All right. John Wayne did one by himself. Yeah. Continue to change social norms. Yes, exactly. I'll take the newbies. Yep. Yeah, they're like, I basically plan on like, if someone, any instructor, request an AI or two, and I'm sure like most guys, because everyone there pretty much likes each other that I know of, it'd be easy to get that going. So bring some chicks that are newbies. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, bring the tallest women you can find so that Lewis can do what he wants with the bloodline. Just kidding. It's not like that. It's much more professional. But I mean, you could show a tall chick Lewis's picture and then buy her ticket if she likes them. That would be okay. But so again, my calendar to make the summit. Man, I sure hope you are there. I really, really do. In fact, I'd like to do it probably like the year following and give you a block because you're such a fucking tremendous, amazing shooter from everything I've seen. But all right, that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. Take violence seriously, especially the active shooters. Like way too many people die from simple lessons we already know. Like a lot of the things that Zach is talking about, those lessons were learned after Columbine, like he said. But how many people need to die after that before people take those lessons seriously? There's a lot of lessons that were forgotten in history that would be saving lives right now if we would have just kept them. So anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching. Keep fighting communism. Kill all pedophiles.